Hi everyone and welcome to my video today. My video is going to be based on something that's quite fresh in my mind, so I'm doing one based on UX strategy. And this stems from a couple of interviews I had previously before I got the job role now. I was asked to create a strategy for a product within the business itself. It was a new product, but I kind of stumbled within the interview, if I'll be honest, because when you go through boot camps and when you go through UX process on your own, you more or less look at things to be just get a general overview of how UX can help the business. So whether that's looking at engagement, how you can improve engagement on an app, how you can boost awareness and consideration within the process, within the homepage, but you're not told in terms of how to devise strategy within an organisation. And this is something that I'm been responsible for and been assigned, and it is bloody difficult, to say the least, or has been difficult. But I kind of want to use this time to not be a reflection. Actually, now I'm in the process of actually being more positive and actually figured out that actually there is a way of doing it. So back to that interview, it was based on a new product that they're releasing for a client. And when you're doing UX strategy, you've got to think about in terms of understanding a bit more about who the user is, defining key problems, and understand a bit more about how that problem can become a solution towards the business. And also the end user. So you've got to be the advocate for the user. So when you implement UX strategy, which is very entrepreneurial, and this is the element that I really enjoy, you've got to figure out which research method will bring you the best aspects in terms of understanding more about the user. So when you, for example, myself, I'm going to keep flashing back and forth from experiences. So where I am now, I'm responsible for one of the major apps within the company I work for, of which means that the UX strategy is not just at the moment it's focused on the app, but then by the time my assignment is actually to implement UX strategy within new product design. Now, within the actual interview I had previously, yes, it was all about understanding how I could help with new projects. So, UX strategy needs to be devised in terms of a what you want to find out, and this could be what are the could be just generic in what are the key problems we're trying to solve for the customer. So, if it's a new idea or app or whatever's going on in terms of the company or product, your best guess would be to actually do some ethnographic research. So that is all about finding a bit more about how the user feels, how the user gets on with actually a natural environment, and just get a general overview of key concerns and observations of how they work. So this app was all about understanding. Sorry, this problem that the interview was about creating a app for a new sleeper train, I think it was, and it was completely new. The business has never been online before, which is strange for the 21st century. But yeah, it's all about finding a bit more about how users think and feel about how they use current apps. So one aspect would be to do observations, look at understanding a bit more about how users interact with current key systems. So you might go out and, so for example, not the same, but could be the same process. You go out to a train station, understand how people use those systems there, how they book a train, go to a ferry port, understand a bit more about the booking process, and get a detailed analysis of the key concepts of moving through what the key problem is. So when doing an app, the obvious thing is going to be creating a booking and maintaining that booking. So you've got to make sure all the key features in terms of understanding what is the key requirements, understanding a bit more about destinations, so it can help in terms of understanding, defining a key problem for the next step in terms of what you want to find out. Again, if it's a new product, taking the ethnographic research will really give an insight in terms of how the customer feels and thinks within natural environments, but it won't define key problems that you're looking for. So you could go on further and do some like focus groups or one-to-one user interviews to find out a bit more about how people interact. Or you can even do yeah, usability test with competitors, but make sure you blank out competitors because it's not. Yeah, it might be a bit off if we do that. So just define again, get them to do like competitor analysis and in terms of understanding the steps they take to book in the booking process, and then it can help you to define key user stories of what you need to do. Now, this is something that I wish I learned and took on board within um, when I did the boot camps, but also did learning myself. It's not the fact that you've got to build everything at once. It's all about the minimal viable product. So you do small changes or make the most viable product that's easy to use. Basic features required. So make sure you've got enough. So, for example, if you're booking for an app, you make sure you've got the fields that you need, the correct buttons, and the correct booking flow of what somebody wants. So create a minimum viable product. Create some either low or high fidelities, and then go through with about 2 to 5 users. Sorry, I'm going to go for a back step. If it's a new product, I would also advise doing card sorting exercise. Once you've done the user interviews, create low fidelities, or then ask the users to come up in terms of how they would define the content on the site, because you might be able to define in terms of, oh, this is works in terms of this is what the user wants, but you're looking at competitors and an imaginary process, and actually understanding a bit more about what the key features and key content ideas would be on the site would help in terms of defining best case scenarios and what key features are. And I would also put in, again, I've stopped about metrics. So just before that step, put in some metrics in terms of saying, oh, 3 or 4 users find this easy to use, or 3 or 4 people will be able to complete booking. And that's what you want to kind of assess in terms of if the usability test has been correct or not correct. And then look to build it, and then understand a bit more. Once you've built it, look at key metrics. Look if there's engagement, if there's any high bounce rates, if people aren't engaging with it. Then you come on to what I'm doing now, which is, so I've already got a product that's built. However, my role is kind of looking at how it can be more user friendly, because it was more focused on development first, and now I'm taking the approach of user first, and that means, so when I was developing the user UX strategy within my business that I am now, it's all about defining what the key pain points are. So for myself, it was a little bit easier because we've got a product already and it does work. There is a lot of functionality that works, but in terms of usability, that element is missing. So my role has been to come in and make sure that it works better. So my process has been to research competitors, what they use, look at key UI elements. So what are key things that might be missing? Doing a UX audit on apps. So I would be taking on board in terms of key points. So taking on Jakob Nielsen's 10-year usability heuristics, which kind of understands what is going well and what needs to be improved, and actually have those as key defining points of what could be researched and what could be improved to improve the usability. Now, with the product like this, it's already been a minimum viable product. It's just still growing, but it's all about, in this case scenario, is not rebuilding the whole thing. It's taking features and creating small changes. Now, the reason being is to create small changes is because users are already using the product. Using too much means they have to be rewired and understand how to use a product again. It causes frustration, it's going to be causing more learning and development, and it's not necessary. So what I'm taking on board is I'm doing small features at a time with developer in terms of improving usability at small changes at a time. Because this not only loosens the workload on developer, it makes sure that we can focus on creating better usability within the actual, and make sure it's feasible. Because it's not just about changing one feature. You've got to think about the back end. What changes are going to affect how the booking flow goes? How it's going to affect the coding? How it's going to affect the architecture? So you need to make sure that you just take on one small key thing and change at a time. And from this, I create user stories based on key functions need changing. So when I did the user research with about 5 key power users, um, it was kind of understanding a bit more about how they think and feel within the system. So it's understanding what they have, the key frustrations, and noting them down and defining them by possible solutions that we could advise. Some are just quick content changes, some are just UI changes, and with some basic UI changes, you don't need to do usability testing because it's a waste of time, and the fact that it is just something that isn't necessary. But there's some when you add features or amend them or remove them, you are going to need some usability testing because this is the feature going to be used, and you need to define that if it is going to work correctly. So with that stage is when I've done the usability user interviews, I've created a UX to-do list in terms of what key feature needs changing, what the possible solution is, how long is it going to take in terms of weeks, defining what the key tasks are required within the process, feasibility if it is going to work. So it might be, so at the moment I'm working on a stepper in terms of like action 1, action 2, action 3, action 4 at the top of the site. Again, it's becoming more of a standardized feature within websites, but it's more complicated than it seems. And then it's kind of defining where it sits within the priority list. Is it high thing? So high, low, medium. Low is it's just a bit of annoyance. Does it affect how the user does things? No. Okay, no. Next stage up is medium. Is it going to affect how the user works? It can do its scenarios, but it still can be worked around. And high priority is yes, that feature is actually causing a nuisance to users and actually is a key problem that needs to be fixed. And this is something you can work with your developer in terms of what is the key problems, along with what is feasible and what's not feasible during this time. So that is what I've done with the UX strategy so far. And then next has been creating wireframes. So I'm going to go back on one again. So with this, I've actually taken it in terms of having, because a lot of these features are going to take a long time to do. It's not just about changing them, it's all about testing, not just with usability testing, but then also developers need to quality test it to make sure it works properly before it's being deployed. You also need to do product requirements and also making sure that everyone on board knows what changes you're doing. So you might have to do a demo. So it's more complicated than what it sometimes can be. So yes, when I do these changes, I'm taking on board about 3 a month, 3 possible changes, because it is a lot of work. It is, so you've got to make sure that you do define what the key problem is, do some user research, how you can do that is how you decide best practice. Then doing some wireframing, could be low fidelity if it's a new product. If it's an already viable product, I would recommend just doing a high fidelity. The reason why I'd say high fidelity is because people used to what you have already, and then you can see the possible changes that you can do, and then create something that can be tested doing usability testing. So whether that could be just normal usability testing, check, see if the features work, give them a task. Doing card sorting exercise, understanding a bit more about where the content goes within the features, or it might be even like a Wizard of Oz type exercise you could do. So, for example, you could give somebody a high fidelity for wireframe, not a prototype, but say, oh, here's one thing, okay, click on it, and then it'll be like a PowerPoint where you can go to the next step, and then it's what's this page, and get detailed features. So and then it goes on to implementing those changes every single time and then handing it to the developer. And then measuring that success as you go along. And then it'll be a continual iterative process. There will be something to change. But once you have that mindset and you've given that mindset over to the organization in terms of how you've changed it, that's how you build a successful UX strategy. So making sure you define what kind of research you're going to do, whether it is a new product, it'd be a mass finding an unknown, or doing already a product you know, but there are some unknowns you need to discover and actually fix. It's all about making sure it builds in line with what the organisation wants as well. Just remember when you do these key things, it's not about redesigning. It's not redesigning the wheel. It's all about making small changes and making sure the user knows how to use products. So it might be new to the product, but still you can still use it. So for example, if I go on Google, I'll know how to use Bing because it'll have the same format. It will have you've got to make sure that the user knows how to use it, regardless of just not. Don't make me think, as Steve Krug would say. So yeah, make sure that it's designed in a way that's similar to others. So in terms of I suppose what we're looking for in terms of UX strategy is making sure that it's user friendly, it's very defined, but making sure people know how to use a system, making sure the flow works, and also make sure that I suppose user familiar in terms of buttons and how to create the end product. So hopefully I've given you sort of a top level approach for understanding how to create UX strategy. It's taking me, don't worry, it's not going to take you 1 week or a couple of days to do this. This, from my notes and my reflections, it's taken me 3 months, and it'll probably take you even more. So what I'd advise you to do is do a monthly plan for the next 6 months or however long, and define what you want to achieve per month within UX strategy when you're new. So month 1 might be just, I would rule off to doing anything UX unless it's already built in. So I would understand a bit more about the product, understand a bit more about the company culture, doing additional learning because that helps a lot when you're doing UX strategy to define key points and how to build better products. 2 is get an understand. Month 2 will be understanding about the business, looking at competitors, get a deep insight, understand a bit more about their products, and understand a bit more about the functionality of how they work. Then define any key questions you want to ask about the current products they've got. Then do a deep dive into user research, understand a bit more about creating a user persona. So what I failed to mention is I've only done power users. So you could do power users, new users, and non-users. So you get an understanding a bit more about how, because you're not just going to get one user, you're going to get a variety of different users using the platform. And defining how they work through the platform and looking at their key frustrations and understand a bit more about who they are as a user will really help to create your products and actually keep referring back to what does the user want? Okay, they want this, this, and this. Okay, then are we doing this within the product? Yes or no? If it's a no, look to understand what can be changed. If it is, doing well. Yeah, and then month 3 would be to start to define through these research to find the key functions need changing or what key things need to be done for the new product. Then look at building, doing some low fidelity work, whether that is working on your own or if you're working out or doing design sprints with MZ team. And then look at defining what kind of research you want to do from the designs. And then take that research, so whether that is usability tests or if that is doing card sorting or doing more user research, then implement those changes within the actual design and then put it out there for beta testing and then finally sending off. And then continue review how you do it. Remember, continue to improve it with the metrics that are defined within the visual process, whether that is looking to acquire new customers, whether that's looking to put customers more into consideration, understand a bit more about pushing buying patterns, understand a bit more about engaging people, making sure that your users you've currently got can use the system better, or if it's about loyalty, how to increase customers who currently buy with you to spend more with you, making sure that's defined within metrics, like yourself. So hopefully that has given you insight in terms of what you can learn in terms of creating UX strategy as a team of one. From my insights, it has taken a long time. Don't worry, just keep persevering. Make sure you highlight to your manager what you're doing per month and what kind of are you changing. It might be a small thing in terms of this is the workload I've done, I'm doing user testing. Just make sure you highlight to them that you're doing big. Because I know for me, I worry about what I'm doing and I'm doing enough. The only way you can do that is to present to your management team what you're doing and actually show how it's coming value. And once you've done that, you can slowly build a case study to build more and more UX based tasks within the business. So hopefully giving you some insights and hopefully giving you some inspiration into creating your own UX strategy. So from that note, have a great weekend and I shall speak to you later. Ciao for now.